In today's video, we're going to talk about demand. Demand is the willingness and ability of consumers to purchase a quantity of a good or service, while quantity demanded is at a certain price and a certain time. For example, the quantity demanded for apples at $5 is 50 apples. In an exam, make sure to write down consumers are both willing and able to purchase when defining the definition for demand. Types of demand. There are multiple types of demand, and the first one we're going to talk about is the derived demand. But first, the definition of a market is where buyers and sellers come together to carry out an economic transaction. For example, the market for apples or the market for vehicles. Firstly, derived demand. Derived demand is the demand for a good that comes from another good. For example, the demand for sheep comes from the demand for wool. Hence, the demand for sheep can be described as a derived demand from wool. Another example is labor as a derived demand. Imagine this scenario. The demand for cars increases in the car market, and in order to produce more cars, more labor is hired. Therefore, demand for labor is derived from increased demand from cars. Another common example of a derived demand is raw materials. As raw materials are often used in the production of goods and services, as the demand for airplanes increases, the demand for raw materials will increase as well. Although derived demand is more of a HR concept, it is also good for general understanding and your internal assessment. The market demand is simply the total demand for a good or service from all consumers, and the individual demand is simply one individual's demand for a good or service. Joint demand is the demand for a good that is usually consumed with another related good. These related goods are known as complementary goods. An example would be like cars and petrol, or bread and butter. This will be explored in more detail in a future video. Another example, the demand for printers can be described as a joint demand with printer ink as well. Ink is a complementary good with printers, and complementary goods are goods that are usually consumed with another good. In this case, it is printer ink. After you buy a printer, you will want to buy printer ink as well in order to use the printer. But what is a good and what is a service? Good is like a product you'd buy from any shop, like apples. Goods are also known as visible goods because they are goods that are tangible, which means you can touch and feel them. An example of a service is education or healthcare. Services are also referred to as invisible goods because they are the non-tangible goods. You cannot see them or feel them. Next is the demand curve. The demand curve is represented by the downward sloping D curve, where the y-axis represents the price of a good or service and the x-axis represents the quantity of a good or service. A change in quantity demanded results in a movement along the demand curve. This is often referred to as the contraction and extension in quantity demanded. A contraction illustrates a reduction in the quantity demanded, where we can say the quantity demanded contracts relative to an increase in price. A QD extension is the increase in QD, where we can say the quantity demanded extends relative to a decrease in price. As price decreases, QD extends. Lower price increases the purchasing power of consumers. This leads to an increase in quantity demanded because the consumers can now afford more. Here is a mistake that some people sometimes make. Remember that the price does not shift the demand curve. The shifters of demand, also known as the non-price determinants of demand, are the factors that shift the demand curve. These are the determinants of demand: income, price of related goods, number of consumers, future expectations, and tastes and preferences. Left shift illustrates a decrease in demand, while the right shift illustrates an increase in demand. The right shift can be described as a right shift from D to D2. An example is the tastes and preferences of the consumers. As bread is trending right now, more people will want it, hence increased demand for bread. A left shift in the demand curve illustrates a decrease in the demand for a good or service. For example, the income of households lowered. Lower disposable income will reduce expenditure of households. In summary, demand is the willingness and ability of consumers to purchase a quantity of a good or service, while quantity demanded is the demand at a given time and a given price. Derived demand is the demand for a good or service that comes from another good or service. Market demand is the total demand for a good or service in a market, and joint demand is the demand for a good that is usually consumed with another related good, which is known as complementaries. Quantity demanded is a movement along the demand curve. A contraction and extension defines the increase and decrease of quantity demanded respectively. The non-price determinants of demand are income, price of related goods, number of consumers, future expectations, and tastes and preferences. Thank you for watching this video. In the next video, we will talk about non-price determinants of demand in more detail. Thank you for watching.